So, hey, there we go. We have Cold Duck with us here tonight. Wow. We know we're going to have a good interview. So, I'm so pleased to be able to have you with us here on this Philadelphia Wall Riders project. And I was just mentioning to you how we haven't heard from you, sir, since the Aerosol Autographers, May 2nd, 1971. And you mentioned to me that you might have missed the actual interview day because you were in a band, but you definitely made the photo shoot.
That
So
is correct.
yes, your photo. So your name is listed in the table of contents. You are in two photographs, and I will put them up for the folks come the end or somewhere in here when I edit it. So we do have a solo shot of you on one page with your name underneath it, and then there's that famous shot of you guys who I was just telling Kid last night. You guys start the daredevil hijinks, the climbing up of the billboards and so forth. And there you are, and you're the first one on that photo. You're posing next to your cold duck tag, and I believe the billboard was Seagram's Gin. Do you remember that billboard of that day?
Yes, I do remember that billboard.
Okay. Do you remember where that was located?
Uh, Not really. No.
Okay, no problem. But it's an awesome photo. And again, I just want to double down and let everybody know it was the West Philly crew that started all of those daredevil hijinks. How high could you go? Where could you place this tag where people are going to say, holy smokes, look at this? So now, the one thing I know is right around that time period of the aerosol autographers, things begin to happen. And again, it's all because of the guys from West Philly. Cool Earl and the Kid have a meeting with Scepter. They tell them, no, we're not going to give you jobs. And then guys go and bomb a bus barn, which lets Scepter know, okay, I guess our cries are not being answered yet. So we'll give you a little more info as to if we're going to stop or not. And then I guess Scepter came around because what Earl tells me is by June of that year, you guys begin to meet Bob Rivera, Mina Siegel. And before we go any further, I just want to clear some things up for folks. So I always assumed that the name Cold Duck, that you had taken that name because of the fortified carbonated wine, Cold Duck. And you actually have something that you'd like to let everybody know about that. So, how does your name come about, sir?
Well, it was because of the activity in Philadelphia. I mean, it was a cold-hearted time.
Mm,
Um, People were getting hurt, killed, and a lot of the gangs. I mean, they was just cold-hearted.
yes.
And so, I didn't have a name, and I was with Kid and Earl and Chewy. And it got to a point where though someone said, "Hey, want to hang out with us? You got to get a name." I said, "I'm
Right.
working on it. Working on it." And a couple of weeks, I'm thinking, and I said, "Well, I got to do a lot of ducking just to stay safe." So that hung in my head for a while, and I started thinking about it, saying, these gang members are pretty cold-hearted. You know, then I just said, just how about cold duck?
Mm,
And I wasn't sure. It sounded corny, and I didn't feel right with the name
mm,
Cold Duck. But then I kept thinking, and so I said, "Well, I'm gonna try it." And
mm-hmm.
I didn't know how the other guys was gonna take to it.
Uh-huh.
They laughed,
Okay.
like, How did you pick that name?" And I told them. They just laughed again. You know. So that's how I came with the name Cold Duck.
And let me tell you something though. No, 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 I don't think it's corny at all. I tell you this, it's well thought out. And from our conversations, just to let everybody know, you and I have had some conversations before, very long, deep conversations that I definitely enjoyed. And when I did hear this, I again, I thought something different, and a lot of people thought something different. No, I think that you thought that one out, and I think it shows that if you were going to do something, you didn't want to just take any old name. Am I correct?
That is correct. I didn't feel as though I was cool. And, you know, I'm pondering around and around, walking in circles. And so I decided, I was just thinking too much about a name. And so I just said, well, okay, I'm going to run with Cold Up. And
Right, right.
so it worked out.
So my next question is just something that I have to ask everybody because I got to clear this up. There's a lot of rumors out there. So when you first started, were you inspired, sir, by Daryl McCray, Cornbread?
No, I wasn't. No.
Had you even seen Daryl at that point on the walls?
I seen his name once or twice, but I've seen a couple other names too,
Right.
uh, with the tag of Cornbread. Uh, the writing was different. I think I've
Mm-hmm.
seen three different types of cornbread names written on the wall. And,
Uh-huh.
no, I wasn't impressed at all.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, I wasn't looking to be impressed by nobody's name. I was just trying to get used to my new name that I had picked for myself.
Sure.
And, and hoping the guys that I was hanging around with, felt good about it.
And now this is the thing because we do know there were about three different cornbreads. So I would probably I would say you start about 3 or 4 months after the kid and Earl and Chewy. So when you start writing, sir, I'm going to almost 100% guarantee you that those tags were not from Daryl at all because he doesn't start. I mean, we're going to go through this, but he doesn't start writing on the walls his name. Okay. So did you see Cornbread Loves Cynthia?
No, I've never seen that one.
Okay. That's the one that everybody said. So what's happening is he doesn't start writing Cornbread by itself until April of 1968. So
Right.
what's happened is people think they might have saw him, but the reality was those were gang members that were writing Cornbread. So if you're seeing Cornbread around that time period when you first begin, it's literally impossible that it was Daryl McCray. So this is interesting stuff that we're beginning to, you know, well, dig up and have an understanding of now. But you definitely were inspired by your friends telling you, hey, you're going to hang out, you need a name, right?
I Yes, I mean, and it was about 3 weeks I was hanging out with him.
Right.
And I kind of felt kind of guilty, like, and I'm watching them, tagging buses and subways and
Sure.
walls.
Sure.
And I just shake my head and smile. And then, they threw the statement at me and say, hey, and I said, I'm working on it. And so,
And yes, and it's very interesting to now know that we have yet another first wave writer who says that they've never seen Cornbread Love Cynthia anywhere. So now, as we move away from that and clearing up the fact that you were not inspired, you did not see Cornbread Love Cynthia, let's get into some other stuff because we're going to set the rumors straight about everything with Cornbread, and we're doing that with Cool Earl right now. So we just want to make sure that we ask everybody what they were seeing out there first, and if they were inspired by this. And obviously, you just didn't see Cornbread Love Cynthia. It's just this story with everybody. Not one person has ever said, "I saw that." So it's odd to know that a lot of documentaries say, oh, and it went around Philadelphia and hundreds of kids to no, no, that's not what happened. So now, so we're back at that time period, 1971. You guys go to the photo shoot. The Today magazine comes out. I'm sure that made you guys very popular. And did you go to the same high school as the kid and Earl, West Philadelphia High?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So it made you guys popular in school. I can only imagine.
Um, I don't know. If it did, I wasn't paying attention because I was I was pretty busy. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we had a nice fan club.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so now what I since it's been so long since we've heard from you, I don't want to do much talking. I speak with Bob Rivera, the gentleman who was one of the adults helping to run the alternative graffiti workshop. And it seems Bob sent you a UGA pamphlet that nobody has said that. Everybody actually told me, wow, this is dynamite. This is unbelievable history from the past. So you sent me that pamphlet. And I want to thank you so much for that. I'll put the cover of it up at the end so people can see the cover. Can I ask you, what do you remember from a gentleman who was writing Turtle? Do you remember Turtle?
No, I don't.
Okay,
I don't.
his name pops up in the pamphlet.
Yes.
One photo that I do um, remember, it sticks out, is Titty Peace Sign is looking at one of his pieces of artwork. And do you remember being down there doing art with Titty?
Say that again?
Do you remember being at the workshop doing art with Titty? Do you remember Titty
Yes,
being
yes,
down there?
yes,
Okay,
yes. I
Titty.
remember cities. Yeah,
Yes, everybody told me Titty was a great guy. Now
yeah, he was good people. Yeah.
I asked you about a piece of art that was in the background of Titty's photo, and again I'll put that up. Um, where it said "Cold Duck has a warm heart." Remember I sent that to you, and it had the picture of the duck on it,
Right.
and you informed me that that was actually fan mail that came down there. That was a fan who had done that, and people um, were obviously well aware, and somebody sent that down, and that's how that photograph got there. But now, can you please begin to tell the folks what you were telling me about your childhood, and can we hear some now of the art that you were involved with and leading up to? And I just don't want to talk no more because I'm so
Okay.
excited about having you on this Zoom right now. So let the folks know.
Well, I started drawing, I don't know, probably like seven. And I had my first art exhibition in the fourth grade at Martha Washington School.
Wow.
And so, that was my life, painting, drawing, sculpturing, um, building model planes. And, I was into the arts. Um, and, I had to leave, I had to step away from that. And that's how I met up with Earl and Eddie. And that wasn't the first time I met Earl and Eddie. I mean, we hung out together. You know, we had a life.
Sure.
Played ball and everything. Um, and when things got really tense, I just asked them, "Have you noticed what's going on?" And they replied to the question. And so after that, I started hanging out with them.
Okay. And as far as those first time periods of showing your art, how did that make you feel to know
I
that?
can only thing I heard, I can barely hear you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, so when you were first showing your art and you have this reception from folks, how did that make you feel that people enjoyed looking at something that you created on this paper? or canvas?
Um, I was sort of surprised because it, you know, it was enjoyable, to
Hmm.
create something.
Sure.
And when I seen the reaction of others, I was surprised that they were so excited about it, especially
Right.
when they, end up presenting me with a gift of having an art show. Uh,
Mm.
and you got to remember, I was in the fourth grade, and
Yeah.
a couple of pieces of uh, sculptures, there in the show, and I was just one with all the excitement about, and I couldn't believe that my work was going to be in an art show.
Yeah. What's that age group again in the fourth grade? What are we in the fourth grade? About 10?
Yeah, 9, 10.
Yeah.
Um,
So you're a preteen and you're already showing your artwork to folks. That must have been an exciting and rewarding feeling. So now you already have that artistic background and you're beginning to hang out with the kid. And I think what Earl told me was that they asked you to go with them one night and you weren't exactly sure what they were going to do. And they
yeah, that
went,
is correct.
okay. And
That is correct.
so what do you remember from that evening? You said, oh, okay, so these are my friends. I'm going to go with them. What do you
Well, no,
remember?
that was the day,
Uh-huh.
and I seen him across the street, and I called him and said, have you noticed what's going on? And
Hmm.
they said, yes, yes. And they said, why don't you hang out with us?
Okay.
And I said, well, what are you doing?
Hmm.
And he said, well, you know, we're having a good time. We creating things, and so I wasn't sure if I wanted to or not because you know I was a musician, I was an artist, and but I knew I couldn't continue to spend all my time being a musician and an artist due to the fact that it was a very dangerous time for
Hmm.
everybody,
Right.
and I had to pay attention.
Right.
So my concern was being safe, and then I had brothers and sisters, and I wanted to make sure they were safe. So I thought about it, and so I met up with them, and we started hanging out.
So when they go out for the first time and you see them actually signing up on the walls, what was your initial reaction at that point?
I thought it was interesting.
Okay, so it did grab your attention a little bit.
Yes, it did. It did.
Okay. And now we know that you obviously did join in with them and you guys begin to sign up on the walls. And again, this leads up to the city paying attention, not paying attention, what's going to happen. How do you describe what you think was happening with the kids in Philadelphia? What was behind wanting to represent themselves on the walls of Philadelphia like that? And again, of course, this is your opinion, and that's what we want. So, what do you think was behind that?
You mean them write their name on the wall?
Yes, right. Yes. What do you think that was? Was it just for fame? Was it a cry out to the city? What do you think? What's your take
Um,
on it?
I don't think anyone really knew the real reason. Uh, there was so much going on. It was more of a release.
Uh-huh.
The fact that we can enjoy ourselves and move around and don't have to worry about someone shooting at us,
Mm-hmm.
trying to beat us up. Uh, it was a time it was freedom, that little that air pocket on a train or walking down the street, it was freedom, you know.
Okay. Yes.
And but we did have to pay attention because when we was in certain areas, you know, we didn't want to be mistaken, and we had to, watch what we was doing and watch we seen a group of guys, we had to watch them,
Sure.
because it was a dangerous time. You got to remember, I mean, this was from one end of Philadelphia to the other end of Philadelphia, and we just didn't want to be mistaken for a gang member, and that could have been easily done. So we did have to pay attention. So when we had that time on a train, on a bus, uh, you know, walking in certain areas, and it was a comfortable feeling, not to be looking over our shoulders.
Yes. Yes. So now it by 71, after 3 years or so of signing up on the walls, the alternative graffiti workshop is presented to you. How did it feel now to be moving back towards artwork on canvases and papers, which is what you were originally doing? Did you feel like a full circle kind of feeling? How did you
Well,
embrace that, and how did that feel?
I I didn't really analyze it much. It was when I heard about the workshop, and you know, I just said, it's great. And I don't think any of the guys knew that, you know, I had completed paintings and drawings. I didn't talk much about it, you know. Um, I just attended the workshop with everybody else. But then some people noticed the difference. Well, not the difference, but my progress.
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up
Yes.
selling a painting that I did at the workshop to Bill Bradley, uh, who played for the Eagles. Uh,
Okay. Bill Bradley for the Philadelphia Eagles.
yes.
Do you remember what position he played?
Uh, no,
It,
no.
this
I
this
just
is
knew he was,
right.
a member of the Philadelphia Eagles, and because I wasn't, I didn't spend much time, sports, studying sports because of,
Gotcha.
my other activities.
And how did Bill Bradley come across these pieces of
Well,
artwork?
how did he come across my artwork?
Yeah, how did he first see it?
Well, I was doing some touch ups on the portrait, and him and a couple other people who came to the workshop,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember them. I think they was given a tour of the workshop by Bob, and they all stopped at where I was, touching up my painting, and he asked me that I want to sell it, and I was shocked. I
Mm,
was really shocked.
right. And do you remember Bob's reaction?
Uh, you know, I remember it was a group of people, and Bob was there, uh, but I had to pan, pan that scene
Mm-hmm.
of, looking at everybody's expression because I was
Right.
shocked,
Right.
but everybody seemed to be, pretty happy about it.
Sure. Sure. That's a major step right there for what the workshop was about. You know what I mean?
Right, right.
So Bob and I believe Sandy was the name of the woman down there. Is that correct?
Yes,
Sandy Rubin.
Sandy Rubin.
So now that they're trying to provide this for some of the wall writers, an opportunity to express themselves artistically, but in a different way, was there any kind of formal training? Did anybody come down and talk to you about paintbrushes or, paint or anything like that?
Oh
Was there?
yes, yes. Bob did a wonderful job. You know, pointing out the equipment and and giving us some type of inspiration on to create something, and to let everybody know that there was a meaning to the creation,
Uh-huh.
So it was a training, but again, you know, I I followed along, and at that point, yeah, I had had some art lessons,
Sure.
prior to that, but I just act like, I didn't try to shine over anyone. I was, I just
Right.
fitted right in with everybody.
Right.
And but I think my art talent showed. I mean, it's something you really can't hide. You once you start drawing or painting,
Yes.
it just comes out.
Yes. So I'm curious, and I'm trying to paint a picture for the viewers. So if you would go down there for a regular meeting, how would that meeting begin? Would they talk a little bit at first? Was there some art instruction? Did it go right into you guys just picking up the paintbrushes and doing what you
No,
wanted?
no, no. Like I said, Bob, explained a lot of things. Um, gave some instructions, and because there were some guys, I think who never had an art
Right.
lesson,
Right.
you know, but the ability was there.
Sure.
And so when Bob, finished talking to him, whatever ability uh, your fellow graffiti artist had, it came out. It was
Right.
like, this is something, you know, that could be released, you know, but only you can release that energy, that talent.
Sure.
So it was like, being inspired and making everyone feel comfortable. This is a work. This is a place for you. I know you guys are doing it on the walls, but we, you know, being at the workshop, you can bring it out and you can explore even more, step into another dimension and
Yes.
come up with
Yes.
a creation. And so that's what that was all about, to get everyone, you know, to fit in and to adjust to that artist spirit, as an artist. And even if you had to paint something on the wall, you would fit into the artist spirit. And there's a different, to me, it was a different feeling than writing a name on the wall and creating a painting on the wall. To me, it was different. I don't know how others felt, but when you say art, and I think a couple guys had to sit back and think, this is art. What we doing is art, and
Hmm.
as you know today, that's what it is. And,
Yes. So,
and so,
so,
yeah.
mm,
So that was
so,
the big. Go ahead.
yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
So, what would you say about any art history? Did they touch on any art history? Did they show you any artists from the past? Maybe a time period of artists? Was that happening at all?
I don't remember anything like that. It
Okay.
might have, because you know when I started working on something, I was, concentrating on what I was doing, and there was quite a few guys down there, and this wasn't a small workshop. This it had some footage.
How many writers do you think would be down there on a regular meeting?
Oh, say 20, 25.
That's a good group. That's
That's
a
a good
good
group.
group.
And people are
Yeah.
coming in, throughout the day.
Do you remember if anybody else got an opportunity to sell any of their portraits or
Uh,
pieces?
I don't know. I don't remember, and I wasn't there every day.
I
And so,
gotcha.
and because, I had other, obligations, because I was
Yes.
actually working part-time at the time too. So I was pretty
Keep him
busy,
busy.
and
Yep.
yeah. And,
Hey, do you remember, if you don't mind me asking, do you remember how much Bill Bradley paid for the was it one portrait or was it more than one?
Was it one what?
Was it one painting or was it
It
more?
was one. It was one painting.
What do you remember that painting going
But
for?
he asked me, you know, how much, and I had to think about it because I never expect someone to be
Sure.
willing to buy my work. And so, I said $40. And back in the 70s, $40 was a
Yeah.
lot of money.
Yes. Yes.
And he said, no problem.
Okay, that's great story right there. Now, do you remember what the painting consisted of? Was it a landscape?
No, it was a portrait. Um, I can't remember the name of the person. It was just the face I seen, and I wanted to create it. And
There you go. Okay, so now, I had a question. Just give me 1 second. Okay, so now you start. How long would you say you part? So June of 1971, the workshop begins. How long do you think you were participating in the workshop before that incident happened with Bill Bradley?
I think a couple of months, maybe, yeah, maybe 3 months. I don't
Okay.
even think it was 3 months. Yeah. But you got to
So,
keep in mind too that you know I was a beginner, but not a beginner.
yes, sir.
You know what I'm saying? So and I don't know how many others who had or participated um, in art classes, um, but I, I guess I can say that my work kind of shined a little bit.
Yes.
But that's just like anything else. I mean, if someone runs track and then you get newcomers come, uh, even if the person is not trying to do their best, it still shows that that person has some ability and experience. And
Right.
when you touch on a piece of paper or a canvas or canvas board with a paintbrush or color pencil, uh, it, once you start going with the curves, I mean, it's just a natural flow. It just comes out. There's no like, oh, don't curve it that much to make it look all that great. You just, you go with the
Right.
movement.
Right.
So, that's
Okay.
how it works out.
So if the program started in June, to the best of your memory, it could have very well been by the end of that summer, you had already sold that piece to Bill Bradley.
Well, since June, I would say about a couple months. Yeah.
Wow, that's an amazing story. Yes, that's good. So now there are several incidents that happen along the lines in Philadelphia and New York of when see, the alternatives workshop was not exactly a studio. I believe a few months before you, some gentleman ripped off a some kind of something was hanging off a building and it had a Dr. Cool #1 tag on it. You remember Dr. Cool,
I
right?
remember Dr. Giga.
So this person ripped off something that had a Dr. Cool tag on it. He didn't bring it to a studio or a gallery. What he did is he was having a showing in a museum, in a hotel in downtown Philadelphia. So it wasn't an official studio. He did put the Dr. Cool tag on display. I believe he put a price tag on it of $1,200. It did not sell, but that was the beginnings for Philadelphia there was a whole story about that. I believe that would be April of 71. So here we're beginning to move towards what would eventually happen with you and Bill Bradley. And this is right about the same time in New York City. And New York comes a little bit later. There's a similar program. They weren't so willing in New York, for the city was not stepping up and doing that for the kids at all, as opposed to somehow there was backing by Scepter. They were one of the sponsors when it came, when we look at that, the pamphlet, Scepter is there as a sponsor. What happened in New York was a little different, and it was sort of just one gentleman who had a studio, and sort of the same story. The artist came down, and then eventually there was a show, a huge show. But the bottom line is, in the early 70s, so guys in New York and guys in Philadelphia right around the same time, 1967, start writing on walls. It moved slower in New York. The history dates back a little further, and it's like you mentioned, in New York, gangs held people to certain districts.
Yeah.
So it moved slower a little bit in New York. But by 1967, guys are doing the same exact thing. And it's amazing to know that within a 3 to 4 year time period in both cities, you guys are actually at a point where you're doing artwork on a professional level, and people who are not children, adults, not teenagers, again, adults are interested in this.
Yes, yes. And, as a society, or as you know, a city that's filled with people, and we all know that Philly and New York, I mean, the skill wise, there's a larger amount of people in New York um, than Philly, but then you got to remember there's suburbs in Philly. Um, and, you have a lot of intelligent people in these cities.
Yes,
Some keep quiet to a certain point. Um, See, art is a language,
yes.
and I don't think anyone's have figured it out yet what kind of language the graffiti is,
There
but
you
they know
go.
it's a language.
There you go.
So, without the writers being present at a certain point in front of officials, the writing on the walls spoke to the officials of the city.
Yes,
So the bottom line is that the message was delivered.
yes,
And then, look, we're humans, we make progress, but we don't know everything.
yes. And you know
Yeah.
what? Uh-huh. Yes.
And there was a lot of downplaying about the graffiti. They're vandals, lock them up, But all that's being said, and look what's happening today.
Yes.
See, there's
And
certain things you can't destroy. You can't stop the wind from blowing. You can't stop the sun from shining. Okay, and it goes on and on and on. Now, some people have been linking the graffiti all the way back to the Egyptians, to the Incas, and that's a point to look at.
you know what? What we're going to do is we can touch on that in another one. So what's happening right now is that was awesome. We're coming towards the end here, so I don't want you to get cut off. So I want to thank you. And we're going to pick up on a part two, hopefully. And I promised you, how I told you how fast the time was going to fly.
Yeah.
And it certainly did, because we enjoyed talking with each other. So thank you so much, Cold Duck. The interview will stop in a moment. So I just want to make sure that I thank you. And we're definitely,
And
you and I
thank you.
enjoy speaking with